Is there anybody in here who can testify that God will bless you with what you need? God will bless you with what you need. If you know he'll bless you, can you grab your neighbor by the hand? Grab your neighbor and testify to your neighbor. Say, neighbor, I know it's rough right now. I know it's hard right now. I know it's difficult. Throw this in for free. Be careful who you count out, because God has a way of saving the least, the last, and the lowest. Just because a child does not measure up to your idea of integrity, just because a child does not measure up to your idea of morality or chastity, doesn't mean you discard them or throw them away. God can turn anybody around. Don't dare throw your nose up at somebody who doesn't meet your standards. God can take a test and turn it into a testimony. God can take a problem and turn it into a praise. God can take a stumbling block and turn it into a stepping stone. Is there anybody here who knows that God can literally turn a life around? Is there anybody in here who can testify that you were going down the wrong path? You were seeking deep in sin, far from the peaceful shore, very deeply stained within, sinking to rise no more, but the master of the seas, he heard your despairing cry, and from the waters he lifted you. Is there anybody here know that God is a lifter? I'm almost done. Here it is. Give me 10 minutes. I'll be out your way. Is that all right? Give me 10 minutes. Be out your way. Listen, thirdly, lastly, young people's positioning evokes the power of God. Young people's positioning evokes the power of God. It's right there in verse 15. And he laid his hands on them and departed thence. The children in the text stayed at the feet of Jesus. Why is this significant? Because the reason why this is significant is because it happened in verse 13. You got to understand, in order to understand what happened in verse 15, you got to understand what happened in verse 13. Well, Matthew, what happened in verse 13? Verse 13 says, and the disciples rebuked them. And the disciples rebuked them. Listen, young people, don't let anybody stop you from accessing the presence of God. I commend these children because they stayed at the feet of Jesus, even though people who have been walking with Jesus longer than them did not want them in the general vicinity. With my spiritual imagination, no doubt the crowd told the children, we don't understand your kind of worship, so we reject you in this space. Using my imagination, I eased in on a conversation between the disciples and the children, and as the disciples got pointed to a corner in the synagogue, they told the children over there, go over there with the youth coordinator, because we don't understand what's going on with you. We don't understand where you are. And so they pointed over to a corner in the synagogue and said, go over there. We don't want you over here, so go over there. But the children made up in their mind that they were going to stay in the presence of God. They made up in their mind that they were going to stay at the feet of Jesus. And because they stayed at the feet of Jesus, because they stayed in the presence of God, God did what he was intending to do. God did what he was intending to do, because they didn't let church folks stop them. They didn't let fake friends stop them. They didn't let mean family members take them out of the presence of God. God ended up laying his hands on them. Now, the reason why I like this last point is because the children teach me something. They taught me literally while I was studying this text. They said, don't worry about who's talking about you. They said, don't worry about who's laughing at you. Don't worry about who's dismissing you, but you got to make up in your mind to stay in the presence of God. Is there anybody in here who's made up in their mind that come hell or high water, I'm going to stay in the presence of God? Because can I tell you somebody that there are benefits when you stay in the presence of God. When you stay in the presence of our God, He'll open up windows that you won't have room enough to receive. When you stay in the presence of our God, you can mount up on wings as eagles. You can run and not be weary. You can walk and not faint. When you stay in the presence of God, God will do exceedingly. God will do abundantly. Come on. God will do above all that you could ever ask or think. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, stay in the presence of God. I know it's rough right now, but stay in the presence of God. I know it's hard right now, but stay in the presence of God. Because when you stay in the presence of God, He'll bless you with what you need. Is there anybody in here who can testify that God will bless you with what you need? God will bless you with what you need. If you know He'll bless you, can you grab your neighbor by the hand? Grab your neighbor and testify to your neighbor. Say, neighbor, I know it's rough right now. I know it's hard right now. I know it's difficult right now. But stay in the presence of God. And God will. He'll answer your prayer. Is there anybody here that know God will answer your prayer? And if you stay in the presence of God, He'll lay His hands on you. Is there anybody here can testify that God laid His hands on you? You were sinking deep in sin, but God laid His hands on you. You were getting ready to lose your mind, but God laid His hands on you. You were crying yourself to sleep, but God laid His hands on you. You were getting ready to commit suicide, but God laid His hands on you. You are getting ready to walk away from it all, but God laid His hands on you. Is there anybody here who can thank God